It's a cold, snowy or rainy night. You find yourself sitting in a diner, looking out the window, waiting for news to come across the transom. You're a detective. Only one thing on your mind: justice. It's pretty corny. But that is the basic setup of Shadows of Doubt, a procedurally generated crime solving game that takes place in the somewhat distant future where rising sea levels or some other form of climate change induced dystopia has forced people onto these tiny little city islands run by corporations. And law enforcement is taken care of by corporate enforcers who don't really care about solving crimes. At least that's the setup for the game. And the only way justice is served is by private investigators. You are one of these private investigators. The game's been in early access for a while, and it got its full release on September 26th. I played it a bit in early access, played it for 10 hours or so, and had a really nice time. So I was excited for the full release to see if things have changed, if they've cleaned up some of the clunkiness. And they haven't. There's just so much in this game. I mean, it's such an interesting setup. You're in this fully simulated world. Everybody has a name, a place they live, a job. You go to their place to work. They have records that show they work at that job. They have some relationships back and forth with people in the world. They can have roommates, etc. There's so much happening in the background of this game while you're playing it to really create this interconnected living world. Overall, the atmosphere of this game's incredible. It is really interesting to play when it works right, although it can be very frustrating at times because much like solving a real crime, there's false leads, there's things that go nowhere, and there's a lot of just kind of nonsense you have to put up with. So to give you a sense of how this game works, we're going to run through a case in which I encountered the dumbest killer who's ever lived. Started up a new world. I used one of the pre-defined cities and created my character, Frank Columbo, obviously, the great detective. I think his first name's Frank. We actually don't know, but he seems like a Frank.
Just one more thing, sir.
Yes, Lieutenant.
So let's get into it. So I was just meandering about the city, waiting for a case to come across. This is all the cases come across in this game. You get a report on your scanner. A new murder case is in the city, and you have to go find it. Before this, I was just wandering around. Make my way to City Hall, where you pick up the case resolution form. This form has all the information you need to find. This case is the case of the Scarlet Slayer. You have to find the full name of the killer. Everything else is optional. The more optional things you do, you get more money out of it. So I make my way over to Bernardi House, where the murder has taken place. The murder's in the basement, so we walk down there. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, you're a private eye. You don't have any authority, and so you have to kind of work around the police. So as we come up to the door, we're going to see some police in there, the enforcers in there, and we're just going to wait them out. Eventually, they'll leave. They've sorted out the murder. They put some tape on the door, and they say, "All right, nothing to see here, bud." And they move down the way, and I'm going to pop right in here and close the door quickly. No one sees me. You see I'm trespassing. I will get a fine if I get caught. And I'm going to begin investigating. So we find the body. Unknown citizen. We get no information at first till we start finding identifying information. Searching the body, we're able to find that they were killed with a sharp object or a blade. That is our entry wound. And we are also able to find that they died sometime between 5:30 and 6:45 Monday, January 2nd. Now it's time to start searching the rest of the apartment for more evidence. We immediately find right next to the body this letter that says, "Let's play," with an anagram and like a hangman setup. There's a period there, and then it's space, or like empty space, period, and then a bunch of empty spaces. I looked at this for a second and went, that seems pretty important. I'm going to save that for later, but obviously I don't have any way of figuring out what it means right now, so we'll put it away and go back about my business. We find some letters addressed to a Sao Yan about them feeling concerned that they're being stalked, asking for help from the surveillance system from the apartment. We find their wallet, and we're able to positively identify our murder victim as Sao Yan Cho. We find another note that details that they definitely feel like they're being followed, also mentioning a burger joint where maybe they work or maybe they were visiting. They also mentioned description, non-binary, I think. So we have maybe some information on who's following the person. Moving to the bathroom, keep moving around the house. Lots of notes scattered about this kind of studio apartment setup. So this is now when I'm decide to go to the burger joint and see if I can find anything there. I start looking around the burger joint for anyone suspicious. I see like 13 people in the bathroom, but none of my business. We're gonna just let them hang out in there. Start asking questions of the people around. Some people are more helpful than others. Some people don't want to talk to you. You can bribe some people with the money you have to give you information. I try to bribe this person and they're not interested. For $50, they won't even see if they know the person I'm after. I ask the woman behind the register if they know Saoyan, and they say they've seen her around Hammerview. Not very helpful. I get back on my evidence board and I'm again thinking of the hangman anagram letter. I go to the burger joint wall to see if anyone on this list has a name that works with the anagram. It's got a QU in it. There's not a lot of names that have Qs in them, and that is obviously something I can work with. At this point, I probably should have picked up the address book from Saoyan's apartment because maybe the killer knows them, but I forgot to do that, and so I am just left with my own searching here. I go outside and think for a bit, stare up at the sun, and then I say, you know what? How many people in this city have a name like that? Why don't we just go in the phone book, start flipping through it, see if anything jumps out? And so I open the phone book, and on the first page of the directory, I am struck with an N. Arquette, which perfectly fits my anagram. So I get their address, and I'm ready to head over. However, I think, wait a minute, I forgot to take fingerprints at the apartment. So I head back to the scene of the crime, and you take out my handy-dandy fingerprint scanner and start scanning for everything. The way fingerprints work in this game is you get different sets, or everyone starts with like the letter A. So Saoyan's the first person I run across. She gets fingerprint A. Since I know her, it starts popping up as Saoyan Cho, and then every fingerprint after that gets a B, a C, etc. And later you can then assign a name to that, and then it'll be that person's name that shows up when you scan that fingerprint. Obviously, Saoyan's fingerprint all over the place. There's a B that pops up. I kind of cut around it, but she had a roommate, and I imagine a lot of these fingerprints line up with the roommate. We also find a fingerprint type C, so there's a third person here unidentified at the moment. Now it's time to go visit Anarquette and see if they have anything interesting to tell us. So I make my way over to Amari building where they are residing, head to the 4th floor, and see if we can't figure out what's going on here. Knock on the door, someone comes to answer. Is it Anarquette? No, it's Agustinos Apostolides, which is a heck of a name, but obviously not my killer, or at least the person I suspect is the killer. Go to ask if they know Anarquette, but obviously I don't have a full name, so I can't ask them that. And instead I say, hey, can I just come in and look around? Would that be cool? To which they say, yeah, man, come on in. And now I have a guest pass, which you just saw pop up in the left corner there. That means I have free reign of their apartment until that timer expires. I come across their roommate immediately and decide to ask them their name, and it is Nino Arquette. Why? They say smugly to the private eye, asking their name. And I'm like, well, you're the killer, obviously. Now I gotta figure out if I can really pin it on them. I ask Nino if they know Saoyan. They say they do know him. They work with Saoyan. I ask them for their fingerprint, and they say, yeah, sure, why not? I'm pretty convinced Nino's the killer at this point. But I never checked their fingerprint to see if it lined up with the B or C's that I found at the scene of the crime. So I take a peek, and it is, in fact, a D. So I do not have evidence to place them at the scene of the crime at the moment. But I continue to search around their apartment. It's always good to search the trash. I find a receipt for a combat knife. Mighty suspicious. So the knife might be here in the apartment. I start searching around the drawers, immediately find a combat knife. Nino turns off the lights because they're trying to go to sleep. Gonna scan that combat knife, and it's got Nino's fingerprints all over it. Not a great sign. And I say, good day, Agostino. I'm gonna head out. I need to go pin this on Nino. I decide to start organizing my case board. Nino's got a combat knife with their fingerprints on it. Their name was basically at the scene of the crime. They work with our victim. The only thing I'm missing is something that places Nino at the scene of the crime. So, with all this in mind, I decide it's time to head back to the scene of the crime and see if I can find anything else that'll place Nino there. As I'm heading in, I think to myself, what am I going to scan? I close the door behind me, and then I think, wait a minute, I never checked the doorknob on the outside of the door. So I give that a scan, and what do we find? Nino Arquette. Gotcha, baby! So, time to start filling in this resolve case form because Nino is about to get pinned. We put in all the information required. We can go arrest them if we want. I'm not gonna. I don't like confrontation, so I'll let the other authorities deal with that. Put in my combat knife. I put in fingerprint that I found at the scene of the crime. I put in where they live because I have their address, obviously. I've been there. And so, yeah, we're good. Let's go hand this case form in. We're done, baby. We walk back to City Hall, snow falling around us, and we slap the case form in the tray. Takes a little bit of time for it to process, but after a few moments, we were correct on all fronts. I didn't arrest the killer, because again, no confrontation for me. But that's a case solved. I feel like Nino didn't do themselves any favor by giving me access to their apartment. Well, I guess that was their roommate. But either way, I got access to the apartment. I got their fingerprints for free. Didn't even have to bribe them for it. I felt pretty good about this case. It was one of the first ones I've solved in a while. A lot of them are pretty hard and kind of go nowhere and can be quite difficult. But I had fun solving this one because my criminal was so stupid. And that was great. It's great when things work out for you. So as you can see, this game has a lot going on. The atmosphere is great. I think the freeform procedural case solving is really cool, and like there's a lot that could be done with that. But there's a lot of clunk in the game. There's a lot of frustration in the game, and it's a game I still find myself not playing as much as I hope I would be. I hope the game continues to grow and get better after release as people buy it, as hopefully the developers get more money to make it better. And I really look forward to seeing what this game has to become. It would be great if you had some level of authority, because you are basically always playing a stealth game, and that can be pretty frustrating. It's also frustrating when you don't have to find a motive for any of the killing. The motive is not on the form, as you saw, and motive is a pretty big deal in actual murder cases, so it'd be nice if that was tied in. Obviously that's a little more difficult to do, to actually form like relationships and true motives. With Nino, maybe they were frustrated with Salyan at work, and that's why they killed him. But again, we don't know. Maybe there was more to this case that I just missed because I just found the name of Nino almost instantaneously in the phone book. Either way, that's Shadows of Doubt, a game that I do like, and I really want to like more, I think is the way to put it. I hope you enjoyed watching. I hope this made you a little interested in Shadows of Doubt, perhaps. Anyways, that's my video. Give us a like if you cared for this one. If you didn't, just don't do anything. Just leave. Give us a subscribe. I think in my last video I said that I wasn't going to make a lot of videos, but I'm kind of enjoying the process of it, so I might keep making them, even if no one watches them. And yeah, thank you for watching. Have a good one.